Hello, this is Brett from Survivalcomms. Today we're going to talk about mobile radio installation and the considerations thereof. Now, most folks get all wrapped around the axle talking about drilling holes in their car, and honestly, plopping in a couple of NMO mounts in a vehicle body is the simplest part of a mobile radio installation. It's so simple, as a matter of fact, that I did a 5-minute comprehensive soup to nuts NMO install video 9 years ago, and you can see that up here if you desire to do so. Today we're going to talk about the important stuff, which is building a foundation for safely powering your mobile radio or any other vehicle accessory electronics you desire to install in your vehicle. So let's get started. Okay, this is a schematic diagram of this vehicle's accessory electrical system that we're going to talk about right now. And we're going to start at the battery. This cable here is our main accessory power wire, and it is a 4-gauge cable. Now this allows me to power a lot of accessories. Now, since most viewers likely will not have a need to power as much as I do, you can use a smaller size master battery plus cable. I would not reduce the size of this lead below 10 gauge, however. Within a foot of the battery, you will find the master fuse. This is the last resort failsafe to prevent a vehicle fire, much like the 200 amp master disconnect most of you have in your homes. You size the fuse for the sum of the loads you intend to operate. For example, if your loads are just 3 radios that draw 15 amps on transmit each, don't pick a 50 amp fuse because the chance of you transmitting with all these radios simultaneously is not realistic. You can likely get away with a 30 amp master fuse, and certainly so with a 40. If you elected to go with a high current circuit breaker, you could certainly do so. Now, I do not care for the self-reset models, and I prefer something like this type here. Now it's time for me to break a few eggs, but it needs to be said. The entire metallic chassis of the vehicle is ground, and there is no need to run a ground wire back to the battery. Furthermore, many modern vehicles are using a battery management system that detects current through the ground, and when you place your leads to the battery, you are inhibiting the ability of the battery management system to properly regulate the electrical system of the vehicle. The exception to this is in a maritime environment where generally a master ground cable needs to be pulled to the battery and a central grounding point established in the equipment bay. Now, in a vehicle, there is a very real need to ensure that the ground cable on the battery is securely tied to ground with a short cable no smaller in gauge than the B+ cable. Each piece of energized equipment needs to be tied to ground with either a short as possible conductor to chassis or preferably a central bus block, binding post, or the ground bus provided on many fuse blocks. When any of these is positively tied to ground, it needs to be a structurally sound connection to chassis with a fastener, preferably no smaller than 1/4 inch in diameter, with the paint removed from the chassis connection point and the use of Starlock washers biting into the chassis and fasteners and quality lock nuts securing the cable connection. Self-drilling screws are not acceptable for this application. Now, the second part of this, which may be controversial, is that there is no need to install a fuse in the ground lead. Let me explain. The chassis of the vehicle is grounded, so the body of your RF connector is grounded, and your mounting bracket may likely be grounded as well. All of this is unprotected and will pull all of the current through these locations when the ground fuse opens, and this in turn will ultimately cause the B+ fuse to fail, but it's going to delay that action. Well, let's demonstrate this in the learning lab. We have a standard run-of-the-mill 2-meter radio on the bench hooked to our power supply. Our power supply is showing 2/100ths of an amp of draw, which is our parasitic draw, and the radio is turned off at this time. Now, when we DC our ground, which is basically what would happen if you had a ground fuse failure, you can see we're not drawing any current. However, that's not our only ground. We're still going to pull ground current through our RF connector. So if we connect to our RF connector here, you can see we're still drawing current. Now, how do we power our accessory circuits on and off? You could certainly leave it connected straight to the battery through a fuse, in a constant power mode, but mind you that many radios, even when turned off, can present a parasitic drain, as you saw in the ground fuse failure demo. You could use a run-of-the-mill single-pole, single-throw switch, but even quality heavy-duty switches will only handle 10 to perhaps 15 amps of current. Now what I elect to do is to switch my accessory loads through a relay. This allows me to positively de-energize all of my accessory circuits with one compact switch. The relay you see here is a 100 amp continuous duty relay that is switched on and off at the console for positive control. A relay is a high current capable remotely operated switch that is typically controlled by a coil where one end of the coil is grounded and the other is energized with B+, and this causes the contacts to close. The B+ is switched at the console. Everything in the vehicle is turned on and off with this one switch. This one switch controls the relay that you saw under the hood close to the battery, and that provides power to all the accessory circuits in the vehicle. And the source B+ is pulled from a non-critical constant power circuit in the vehicle wiring through a fuse. For average ham radio use, you could probably get away with something like this. This is a 40 amp relay, and you can see our terminals here. This is what would hook to your source, this to your load, and these are your ends of your coil. You can see the simple schematic here. So how do we bring this wiring into the cab? To do this, we have to penetrate the firewall of the vehicle. You want to take your time and locate a good spot to make this penetration. Size it for your conductors, insulate and seal this penetration after pulling your cable through using grommets and sealants. Remember, your firewall is literally a firewall, providing protection from such, but also deadens noise, prevents moisture intrusion, and keeps carbon monoxide out. And if you're pulling a single 10-gauge wire, you may be able to slide it through an existing grommet. Just take your time and consider all of this before drilling a hole. Now we come to our fuse block and ground bus. This is the interface between our accessories, radios, etc., and the electrical supply you just built. Tie the ground bus to the vehicle chassis like we discussed earlier at the ground stud, and then take the load side relay wire and attach it to your fuse block on the fuse block B positive side. If you need to add another fuse block in another part of the vehicle, make that connection on the same stud as your feed. If this sub panel is a smaller load, you can reduce wire gauge as appropriate, and it would be a good idea to fuse that sub panel here as well. Fuse protection works best at the lowest common denominator and makes troubleshooting much easier as you are isolating failure points. Inside the console there is another fuse block in there, which is basically one of the two sub panels that are installed in this vehicle. And here's our sub panel in the back of the vehicle here, mounted to my toolbox. Up front, the panel that's inside the console powers the control heads and the accessories up front. And again, this right here controls our radios themselves, the drawer units. And you can see everything's mounted securely, and the stuff's not going to get kicked around or moved around at any time. We've got the speaker mounted back here for the VM8000 Kenwood. We have the ICOM ham radio beneath that. We have the Apex 6500 and 8500. Now this sub panel is fed with a number 4 conductor, and then you see we have a number 8 next to it. Well, that number 8 with this fuse holder is powering that 8500. The 8500 draws 40 amps, and that's the safe way to connect that, is right to the feed for this device, and it's protected by a fuse. Well, that's about all I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to talk about the basic wiring, which is the foundation of your mobile radio installation in your vehicle. And again, if you want to check out my antenna video, the link is up here. I hope this helps. This is Brett from Survivalcomms. Till next time.